Just why is modern life so stressful? Now, that's a question that lots of people ask, and it seems to be a question that gets asked more and more often. Now, before I answer it, let's just take a look at a typical day for the average person. You get up before it's light. You've got to get your family up and fed, and your kids off to school, and then you've got to get yourself to work. Perhaps you have a long drive in heavy traffic, or you have to deal with overcrowded public transport. Either way, you arrive at work tired and in need of that first cup of coffee. Coffee, which of course is a stimulant which raises stress levels. And if you're like most people, your working day probably involves staring at a computer screen under artificial light. Lunch is probably something high in fat and sugar, and is eaten al desco. Work probably requires your complete concentration, and is likely interrupted by phone calls, conversations with co-workers, dealing with things that are going wrong, etc., etc., all up against a tight deadline. The journey home is a repeat of your journey in. Perhaps after work you go for a workout at the gym because you feel you're not getting enough exercise. Or maybe you have to cook dinner for your family. Then there's all the other stuff that you had to do at home, the laundry and the cleaning and helping the kids with their homework and getting them to bed and that sort of thing. And then you crash in front of the TV and maybe you doze off and sleep for a couple of hours, but then you wake up and you're even more tired. So you simply fall into bed exhausted. After a fitful night's sleep, you get up the next day and do it all again. And the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that, and so on. Well, no wonder you feel stressed. So exactly what is stress? Well, stress is nature's way of dealing with our inbuilt fight or flight mechanism. And it all harks back to your inner caveman or your inner cavewoman. Now, back then, if you were hunting a woolly mammoth or you were hunting a deer with just a spear and a bow and arrow, then you'd need plenty of energy to track it and to chase after it. Your senses would be heightened too, so that you could find it in the first place and anticipate where it was going to run. Likewise, if you were running to escape a saber-toothed tiger, well, you'd need plenty of energy, and you'd need to keep your wits about you too. Either way, the stress would be just for a short time only, and then you'd rest. Nowadays, though, we're on this heightened state of alert all the time. The unnatural ways we lead our lives, well, that doesn't help either. You need to learn how to program your mind so that the inner caveman part doesn't perceive everything as a hunting expedition or a threat. And it's not too hard to learn. And once you can do it, life will become much less stressful, practically overnight.